Viewers, the countdown has begun because on Tuesday, India and EU will be unveiling their FTA, and they're calling this the mother of all trade deals because European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has said, and she will be in India as a chief guest in the Republic Day 2026, and it is during this time that India and EU are expected to formally sign a landmark free trade agreement at the India-EU summit on January 27, just a day after Republic Day. So we'll tell you why this really matters and why the world is watching, because this deal brings together nearly 2 billion people and almost a quarter of the global economy. The India-EU FTA is not just about goods. It covers services, investments, digital trade, and even supply chains, making it one of the most comprehensive trade agreements India has ever signed. Negotiations dragged on for years, stalled over tariffs, agriculture, and regulatory standards. The fact that it's finally ready tells you one thing: both sides see strategic urgency. And look at the economic scale of the deal. The EU is already India's largest trading partner, with bilateral goods trade crossing $136 billion in financial year 24 and 25. This agreement aims to supercharge that number, and it is expected to double. For India, the biggest immediate win is tariff elimination. Duties of 12 to 16% on textiles, along with tariffs on pharmaceuticals, electronics, gems, jewellery, leather and auto components will be phased out, giving Indian exporters a major edge in the European market. For the EU, the prize is better access to India's fast-growing consumer and services market, especially for machinery, chemicals, aircraft, high-value wines, diamonds, and even professional services. But there is also a sector that's deliberately left out: agriculture. Sensitive sectors like dairy, rice, spices, and poultry are also excluded. India wants to protect millions dependent on farm livelihoods. The EU, meanwhile, has strict sanitary rules. So both sides chose pragmatism over confrontation. That's important because agriculture has been the backbone and also a bone of contention in the India-US trade deal as well. And that's why talks have been stalled on the deal front between India and the United States, where India stands to gain big with EU deal this time. And it's not about product, it's about services, tech and digital trade. The FTA liberalizes telecom, finance, e-commerce and digital trade, offering a smoother runway for Indian IT and services firms operating in Europe and for European tech companies entering India. There's also a strong push on investment facilitation. The EU has already invested over $117 billion in India since 2000. But there is also a strategic subtext. The deal is not just economic, it's geopolitical. For India, it helps reduce dependence on China, diversify supply chains, and hedge against rising US protectionism and tariff threats. For EU, India emerges as a reliable Indo-Pacific partner, crucial at a time when global trade is fragmenting. So in an era of trade wars, tariffs, and shrinking globalization, the India-EU FTA sends a counter signal that two large democracies are betting on rules-based trade, strategic trust, and long-term economic alignment. India-EU trade deal may well mark India's biggest trade diplomacy moment of the decade.
Well, in some respects, Trump's is pushing the two sides to get closer together, and it's beneficial in more than just eliminating individual tariffs, although financial, of course, that will help growth in both sides. But it's also about building a stable, predictable corridor for goods, services, capital, and also technology between two huge markets. Now, EU is a very rules-heavy bloc. It's been consistently criticized for excessive bureaucratization. And when it makes trade agreements, it tries to make them double as governance templates. So, trade agreements with the EU are not just about trade itself, but also about product standards, data practices, labor expectations, and sustainability as well. India is a very fast-growing economy. It has a strong instinct to preserve policy space and to protect sensitive sectors and while keeping room for industrialization. But this deal will actually force the two sides to think outside the box, to become more resilient, and to kind of push for a major breakthrough in the way they actually do business. It's not just about the terms of the agreement, but the actual practice of implementation.
So let me put it a little bit more in perspective. I think, first of all, we'll have to see what exactly has been negotiated with what kind of tariff levels on different commodities, and that will only happen. It's highly confidential at this part. Nobody has privy to it. So it would not be right to comment on it. But let me put out the things on three aspects. First, a negotiation of this sort, I think it's a new set of negotiations, first, which began on 2022, and last year both the political leadership on both sides re-emphasized in February that they will get the deal done by December, to what we are looking at now as the highlight of the summit, which is going to take place on the 27th. Second, I think in the last 3 years, and more so, I think particularly in the last year, the developments over what you have also called the tariff wars has brought a whole new lens to the negotiations and the discussions on both sides, bringing a certain political necessity and, more importantly, an urgency after the round of additional tariffs which have been imposed on India. And again, what has happened in the sense of the EU now not going through with the trade deal with the US. So I think we have to look at all these two political components and what does it mean, and why, when von der Leyen says that this is going to be the mother of all trade deals, I think there is going to be a net positive outcome on both sides.